Hello and welcome back to the Open to Life podcast. I believe this is episode 5. And in this episode, I just really want to speak candidly about what it was like navigating my unexpected pregnancy. I already talked about what it was like finding out I was unexpectedly pregnant, but now I want to talk about what life was like actually navigating that, living it out. And for starters, vocab. I'm using the phrase unexpectedly pregnant because I don't ever want to use the words unplanned like the abortion industry uses, planned parenthood and unplanned pregnancy. I believe that even when life comes to us unexpectedly to us, life is never unplanned by God. So I'm never going to say that it was unplanned, though it was unexpected. But I think the phrase unplanned pregnancy, it's disconnecting that sex makes babies, okay? That is the way how children come into the world. That is the way how reproduction happens, is through sex. I know, right? Hot take, if you didn't already know. I found out I was pregnant when we were still in Texas, right? I had already committed to my now role with Pro-Life San Francisco. And so we knew we were going to be moving out west to California for the California dream, baby. And at, I don't know what was going through our heads. Honestly, I feel like we're just these like young kiddos. Even though we're in our like mid to late 20s, it still feels like we're just kids. Like what? But somehow we just felt like this was where God was calling us, and it was just such strange timing. Like, God, why are you calling us to leave everything we know and love now at such a pivotal point in our lives? Because when you find out you're pregnant, I feel like the logical thing to do is you hunker down, like you stay where your community already is, right? Like that's what you would do, right? But that's not what you do when the Holy Spirit is moving and asking you to do something beyond your human understanding. Okay. So, we knew we were going to be moving out to California and then found out we were pregnant, and I was just shocked, as I've talked about previously. But I wasn't really thinking about like how are we going to do it? Like how are we going to make everything work? Working and money and life and all of our hopes and dreams and desires. I wasn't even thinking like that. It was just like, oh, huh? I don't think I imagined how life was going to be different with a child, just really in that pure shock of, oh, this just isn't what I expected. But anyways, so we, packed up our lives in a minivan and headed out to San Francisco. And well, one of the first things I did when I found out I was pregnant was I thought the right thing to do was to get like a medical grade pregnancy test. Like, okay, I did the pregnancy test at home, and then I thought the best first step is to get a test in a clinic. So I called up my local pregnancy maternity resource center, and I was told I would have to wait 2 weeks to come in for a test, which I found to be very odd because I feel like if I called and I seemed to be abortion minded or abortion vulnerable, they would have taken me right away. And they did not. So I was really disappointed by that. Thankfully, I was able to get a pregnancy test and an ultrasound at another pregnancy center because I knew the executive director. Now, I'm not saying like I expect special treatment because of who I am as a pro-life activist leader, But I did think, just as like a pro-life friend, that my friends would help me out, and I was really disappointed in that scenario. But then my friend came through at that other pregnancy center, and that's when got my first ultrasound. And I don't think we could even see my son in the ultrasound. I think all we could see was the gestational sac. He was that tiny, and that's all that could be picked up on that little screen, which was enough to see, okay, baby is in the uterus and you're pregos, Lego my prego. um and once we got to San Francisco, then I'm thinking like, okay, what do you do now? Like when you're pregnant? Prenatal care. That sounds like a thing, right? Yeah, okay, I'll look into that. And then I was looking into what is within our insurance, okay? And I know I want a midwife because I know I want more of a natural, unmedicated birth. So in order to reach that end goal, you got to like work backwards of like, what is the prenatal care I want now so I can get the birth that I want. So I thought, okay, I'm going to work with a midwife, because a midwife would surely be more holistic than an OBGYN, right? So I found a midwife practice that was in network, but then I soon realized that that midwife practice was very much still within the medical system, the medical industrial complex. So I was really let down by that. And then we switched to a birth center that sadly was out of network, which meant we had to be paying out of pocket to get that prenatal care and to pay to use that center for my birth. And I was just really disappointed by the contrast difference of the experience I had working with a midwife, or as some people will say, medwives, because they're still medical providers, even though you would think they would be more holistic in their approach. Maybe some are, okay, to their credit, but I was really disappointed because it was just very like, okay, how are you doing? Okay, let's check baby's heartbeat. Okay, everything looks great. See you in 2 weeks and or next month, whatever. And like that's prenatal care. And I feel like as pro-lifers or just people in general, if you've never experienced pregnancy or navigated a pregnancy with a loved one, you don't really know what prenatal care quotation marks entails. So I didn't know what to expect. But when I was in that medical system, it very much was like how I described, a very quick appointment. Okay, do you have any questions? No? Okay, let's hear baby's heartbeat. Okay, baby is sounding well, baby's measuring well, and everything looks good. Bye. And like that's it. But when I switched to that birth center, my appointments were like an hour long, and it was mainly a lot of conversations. It was a lot of let's talk about what are your fears? What would happen if you lose this baby? What is next after this baby? Just a lot of good discussion prompts. I really enjoyed that level of care once I switched. It sucked that it was out of pocket. Apart from prenatal care, I was also navigating getting other resources. For example, to not be food insecure, I applied for the statewide food program, which previously was food stamps, what is now called EBT, electronic bank transfer, which pays for my food. And I also was able to apply for insurance for the state coverage through Medi-Cal. So I, being a pro-life leader, activist in San Francisco, And being pregnant at the same time, I was in a unique position that I wanted to experience and find firsthand resources that we could then tell other families navigating pregnancy, parenthood, where to go. So I could find these resources for myself to then share with others, but also to benefit from these resources firsthand. So I went to one program called HPP, Homeless Prenatal Program, and you don't have to be experience homelessness to benefit from that program. I imagine at one point in time it was specific to unhoused moms, but it will help anyone who is struggling financially, uh, economically, if you're a single mom who works two jobs. So I experienced mentorship, guidance, group classes at Homeless Prenatal Program, HPP. And through HPP, I discovered this other citywide community support program called Pop Up Village. At the time, they would do once a month pop up, almost like a farmer's market, just like a pop up with multiple community programs. So I learned about Pop Up Village, and attending that uh, little community resource fair, I learned about so many other resources available in San Francisco. So I was able to find a doula for free. I was able to learn about an early Head Start program, I believe, that kind of began in the womb because they started working with me when I was pregnant. And it was great getting so much help. And truly, in a place like San Francisco that is so in favor of abortion, child killing, there is not a lack of resources to support pregnant and parents throughout pregnancy and beyond. It just really baffles me, having navigated finding these resources for myself, how abortion is still so promoted when there's so many resources. There was even an article that came out recently about how progressive San Francisco is in their abortion values for women's rights, etc. And they mentioned Papa Village in that article, like, this is the thing that women need, right? And like, okay, true. So on the other side of the same coin, why do we need abortion then if we have all these resources that exist? Like, when it comes to why aren't pro-lifers doing things like Pop-Up Village, nobody disagrees with you. Pop-Up Village, the concept of a community resource fair targeting pregnant and parenting populations, like, 2 thumbs up, five stars, 10 out of 10 rating. That is amazing. Anyways, so being financially insecure and food insecure, I applied for the state food program, the state insurance program. We were paying out of pocket for my prenatal care at the birth center, and I was navigating getting resources like clothes and food and classes through other community programs. Oh, and getting a doula. So it was really hard because I was doing all this while leading my nonprofit, Pro Life San Francisco. I was doing all this while not getting paid. And a lot of the times my husband was away traveling for work. I just remembered something when we first moved to San Francisco, and we do not live in a pretty part of the city, okay? And someone said to me, and I know they didn't mean anything by it, but these words have rang true in my mind, and I still reflect on these words from time to time. They said, "Man, you guys are just like my parents. Broke, pregnant, no money, living in the ghetto. Haha, you're just like my parents." That their parents had a similar experience when they were in their 20s. And I guess it didn't really like send off any alarms in my head at that time, but now I look back and I'm like, yeah, I was broke, pregnant, no money, living in the ghetto. um Now granted, I am married, so I do have that support system. And I will say though, there were a lot of times when my husband was gone on work and I was alone, and it was really hard on the day to day, just feeling so alone, being pregnant and alone. So, if there's any silver lining from this experience, I believe it is that I got the opportunity, dare I say, the privilege to have radical solidarity with the exact women who I want to help, the exact women who I've been claiming to help for years. I get to say that I have a new level of understanding, having navigated an unexpected pregnancy myself, having navigated applying for government resources, having navigated finding community resources, community support. And this was all while moving to a completely new place, abandoning everything we knew and loved in Texas, and knowing all of zero people who actually lived in the city, and having to find community, like start over. So it was really hard doing all these things I just described. And it's hard now being a mom to a child on the outside, my born child, because motherhood began at fertilization. Okay, my motherhood journey began the second I knew I was pregnant. Life changed. And so it was really hard. I want to encourage you, if you are navigating an unexpected pregnancy, that you're not alone. You're not the first nor the last person who has been there, done that. So it can be done. You're doing the right thing. Keep going. Don't give up. This is going to be your year. Now I have like a totally different kind of perspective on birth, having navigated paying out of pocket for prenatal care and for the use of the birth center. I 1,000% believe birth should be free. I don't think that should be controversial. I hope every pro-life person can get behind that. I think there are things like birth that should be free. Now, yes, I know that comes out of tax dollars and blah, 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 blah. I think there are ways that we can stop, for example, funding war, maybe, perhaps, and start funding birth and paid family leave. Okay, we can move things around. We can move some things around and pay for things like birth, so that people who are struggling, like we are, question mark, can get good prenatal care. Now, it's all really a matter of what is the birth you're wanting, okay? I was wanting a natural, unmedicated birth. I really wanted to just like be in this like lioness, like fierce experience and